Today I want to talk about bugging in and certain considerations that you have to take and weigh heavily should you decide that bugging in is going to be your primary strategy. I'll be right back after this. When the shit hits the fan and your primary plan is to bug in, here's some considerations that you've really got to have a plan for. Number one, pollution. And there's different components of pollution. We're going to talk about the stinky kind of pollution, your garbage, your refuse. You've got to have a plan to make sure that that stuff gets taken care of, that gets buried so that it doesn't create odors and doesn't create an attractive nuisance for neighborhood critters, bugs, maggots, any of that kind of stuff. You've got to have a plan for that. I'm thinking that one of the best ones, if you've got the land to do it, is to dig a pit and bury the refuge type garbage in that pit, cover it over, fill it up, dig another pit, pour it in there. Keep your papers, combustibles. You're going to need them, I think, at some point in the future to use as kindling, to burn for heat, that kind of stuff. So the stinky kind of pollution is one of the considerations. Second consideration under pollution is light pollution. You're going to generate light at night, whether you're burning candles, whether you got kerosene lamps that you're running in your house, whether you've got a generator that's running and you still have electricity that, you got your lights going on, going off, all that kind of stuff. You're going to want to make sure that you've got a plan in place to block any escaping light that's going to seep out through your windows, through your doorways, cracks and underneath your doors, that kind of stuff, so that folks don't see activity in your house after dark. There's lots of different kinds of blackout curtains that you can purchase. There are blackout curtains that you can fabricate yourself. Just a little bit of research, a little bit of plan, use what you've got, but reduce that noise or that light pollution. The third consideration is noise and noise pollution. If you've got power, you may be running a radio. If you've got power, you may be running a generator. Well, a generator is going to make noise no matter how quiet they are, and you don't want to bring it in the house to run in the house, because carbon monoxide is going to escape from the combusted fuels and all that, creating a dangerous situation. So you got to be very careful with noise pollution. Even conversations can be detected from hundreds of yards away in the right kind of conditions. So keep it quiet. When the shit hits the fan and you're in your bug out location, keep it very quiet. All right, another consideration under pollution, cooking smells. When you're cooking any kind of, you name it, vegetables, meats, any kind of stuff like that, you're going to create odors. Now, if you can cook indoors safely, you may be able to mitigate that quite a bit. But if you have to be forced to cook outside, open fire, gas grills, charcoal grills, that kind of a thing, you're going to generate odors. And I would suggest that you prepare your cooking plan to optimize the right time of day to do the cooking. Most bad guys are going to be on the prowl after dark. So I would cook during the day. Prepare your meals a little bit in advance so that when evening comes around and that's your normal dinner time, that's when you eat. It may not be as hot as you like it. You may be able to warm it up just a little bit without creating too much of an odor, But you've got to be aware that odors are very noticeable, especially for folks that are hungry. Security, a big issue if you're going to bug in. Your primary location, wherever you're living now, is probably going to be your bug-in location. Do you have it secured? That's a loaded question. I guess if you're ultimately wealthy and you live in a gated community and you've got armed guards around your palace, that kind of a thing, you're probably in pretty good stead. But for the average working Joe that lives in the city, in the suburbs, got a house, neighbors either side, streets running in front, streets running behind, very difficult to create a secure environment for your bug-in location. But there are some things that you can do. Make it difficult to get to your property. If the shit hits the fan, you're going to want to make sure that you can get out, but nobody's going to be able to come in. You can do that by blocking your driveway, putting gates up, using fences, that kind of a thing. Cattle panel fencing, great idea for that kind of stuff, especially if you're in a suburban kind of an area. They can actually look pretty nice, but you can secure it so that nobody can come in and you can go out. I think the biggest concern that I would have is perimeter control. Our plan is to have our daughters, our two daughters, and their families join us when the shit hits the fan. We've already sat down around the kitchen table, figured out communication plans so that we can be in touch with each other and under what circumstances, how to travel, how to get here, alternate routes, when to come, when not to come, all that kind of stuff. But that's the plan, is to have them join us here. Our house is plenty big enough to house my wife and me and my two daughters and their families for quite a long period of time. When they get here, perimeter control is going to be paramount. We will now have lots of extra lives to be concerned about. I've got grandkids, I've got daughters, I've got son-in-laws. It's, you've got to do it. So the plan will be to use perimeter patrols. We'll work out the perimeter patrol schedule when everybody gets here and we know exactly who can make it and who's not going to make it. And however we do it, we're going to be walking patrols around our property to make sure that we know where things are, who's there, who's not supposed to be there, who's trying to encroach, making notes of the traffic up and down our roads and the side roads that surround our property. And we're going to have a patrol plan that covers 24/7. I don't know if the shifts are going to be 4 hours long, 6 hours long, full 8 hours, that kind of a thing. But there's going to have to be walking patrols. And you know what? They're going to need more than just their eyeballs. They're going to need to be armed. So those folks that are on patrol are going to need to know how to use a rifle, how to use an AR-15, how to use a handgun. And they're going to have to be armed at all times when they're out there on patrol, because you'll never be able to anticipate the intentions of a bad guy that's desperate. Can you defend your property? You're going to be bugging in. You're going to be bugging in your house. Like me, I live in a suburban area. There are folks that live in very urban areas, downtown, high-rise apartments, that kind of a thing. Each has their own kind of considerations that you've got to be mindful of when you put your plan for defense together. Are your doors secure? Have you taken the time to make sure that the deadbolts are actually working and working properly? That your hinges aren't attached with little 3/4 inch screws, that you've used a good solid 2-inch or even bigger screw into the door frame to make it that much more difficult to break that door down. Someone that's very determined with a log big enough can bust down pretty much any door that they can come across. So do you have a plan, and have you looked at the egress to your property, whether it's your front door, your back door, side doors, garage doors, all that kind of stuff? You've got to have a plan in place to make sure that you will be as secure as possible. We've got regular wooden garage doors in our garage. It wouldn't take much to drive the front end of a vehicle right through those garage doors, gain entrance into our garage. We've got stuff stored in here that's could be easy takens, and all you got to do is just bust the door down. Now I've got a plan. They're 9-foot doors. I've got 8-foot sheets of plywood. I've got 10-foot pieces of 2x6, and we're going to be, when the shit hits the fan, we're going to board those doors up and make it that much more difficult for anybody to bust in through the garage doors. Front doors, hinges are already double recessed, and we're using 2.5-inch heavy-duty screws to hold the hinges into the door frame. All the locks and the padlocks and the deadbolts, all been tested. They're lubed. They work well. So that's about all you can do. Take a look at your windows, where your windows are located. Make sure that it's difficult as it can be for anybody to try to scale up the side of your house, break into a window. Somebody that's absolutely determined is going to figure out a way to do it, but your job is to make it that much more difficult. And if you can hear them coming, if you can get that first alert kind of a thing with tripwires, whatever, in your front lawn, in your side yard, in your sidewalks that lead up to your property, in your driveway, that kind of a thing, that can give you an alert, use it. That extra 10 seconds, 5 seconds, going to give you the advantage. Make sure your doors are locked. As part of your bug-in plan, you need to have a bug-out plan. If your property gets compromised, if your house gets compromised, if you're the victim of a home invasion and they steal all your stuff, but you're still functional, you've got what's on your back. Do you have a plan to get out of Dodge? You got to have a bug-out plan. Whether you're going to bug in or not, you got to have a bug-out plan. Because if all your bug-in plans fail, you got to have a bug-out plan. Where are you going to go? A relative's place, your cabin in the woods, your cabin at the lake, your vacation place wherever you go every year, timeshare, I don't know. But you've got to have a plan to make sure that you have that plan B ready to go, how you're going to get there, alternate routes played out, supplies that you can easily carry with you or take with you if your vehicle's still operative. Can't stress it enough. Part of your bug-in plan has to be a bug-out plan. I'm more concerned now about the eventuality of a shit-hits-the-fan scenario occurring sooner rather than later than I ever have been. The chaos that's going on in Washington right now, the leaders of our country that can't figure out how to get out of their own way to make things happen, the escalating foreign affairs concepts with North Korea, in Iran, in Iraq, Pakistan, Israel. It's almost mind-boggling what we're up against. That's just in foreign policy. Economic situations, very concerned about this overvalued marketplace that we're in right now. The threat of some kind of currency upheaval, some kind of economic upheaval. The climate, I don't know if it's climate change or what. I'm not a big proponent of how climate change has been portrayed, but I do believe that we have responsibilities and have had responsibilities as guests on this planet for stewardship of this planet's resources. The solutions that have been thought up in the Paris Accord and this and that and the regulatory stuff, I'm not sure that that kind of stuff is going to actually solve the problem until each one of us assumes it's his or her own responsibilities for personal stewardship in this environment. But be that as it may, we can still face superstorms, hurricanes, tornadoes, any kind of natural weather catastrophe can hit anybody at any time. Beyond that, we're sitting on the Yellowstone caldera, that super volcano that everybody's talking about that's getting quite restless out there. That's very disconcerting to me. The devastation that could cause, you're talking global extinction levels of danger there. Can we survive that kind of stuff? Well, if you don't have a plan, you're not going to have a chance. If you've got a plan, you've got a chance. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to be prepared always. And I'll see you on the next video.